I've learned a lot in the last 18 months working closely with Jim Kennard, Master Mittleider gardening instructor. Among many things that I've learned, probably a predominant item is plant nutrition, and that a plant can only be as productive as its greatest limiting factor. As I've been to many gardens, I've noticed the plants are hungry, and because they're hungry they can't produce fruit like they should. This is my plum tree that we have been feeding the Mittleider all-natural mineral fertilizer to this year, and this tree has been heavily picked. This is what's left. I'm about halfway through picking today. This is what I picked so far today. That is probably 8 pounds of the most delicious plums you've ever tasted. The branches are getting so heavy with plums, I actually had to put a brace over here to hold the plants up. I'm out here picking every day, and I cannot get enough of these plums off the tree. I've sent out an emergency message to my family, come and pick these plums, because even between the birds and me, we can't get them all off the tree. It's interesting, my nephew came over here yesterday to help me with my honeybees, and I offered to let him take some plums home. He said, sure, I'll take some plums home to my family. I said, you got to taste one first. He says, no, I don't like plums. I said, no, you've really got to taste it. He says, no, the last experience I had tasting a plum wasn't a good experience. I said, please just give it a try. So out of courtesy, he popped one in his mouth, and I said, you need to put it all the way in your mouth, otherwise it's going to squirt all over the place. So he put it in his mouth and graciously bit down on it and said, wow, that's a lot different than the last plum I had. And then he bit down on it again and says, wow, that's really good. And then he bit down on it again. He says, I think I like plums. And he took every plum that I offered him back to his house. I don't know how many of them got back home, but he loves the plums off this plum tree. And I think it's because when the plant gets all the nutrients that it needs, it can produce all the sugars at the time of ripeness. So when you harvest the fruit, it is amazingly sweet. And we have seen this to be the case with broccoli, blackberries. You got to see this picture of the blackberries from our backyard. It'll blow your mind. Plums, Swiss chard, kale. Can you believe having sweet kale? But yes, sweet kale. It's because the plants have the nutrients to turn their fruit into amazingly sweet and awesome tasting mouthfuls of joy. So I would encourage you to use the Mittleider weekly feed in your vegetable garden, but don't forget to use it on your fruit trees. So this year we started feeding it the Mittleider weekly feed. Actually, at the end of last year we started feeding it the Mittleider weekly feed. Generally the rule of thumb is you want to feed it 3 times a year. I decided to feed it more often, and we have more plums this year than we've ever had all the years combined. Without exaggeration, we probably have 500 plums off this plum tree. I don't even make breakfast anymore. I just come out to the blackberry bushes and the plum tree, and I harvest in the morning, and I eat my breakfast as I'm harvesting. So I would recommend that you mix up your own batch of Mittleider weekly feed. Follow the guidelines on how much to feed the trees by watching my other video on feeding fruit trees. I'll have a link below this video on my YouTube channel. And then start feeding your trees. I would say feed your trees a minimum of 3 times a year. If you want higher production, maybe even once a month during the fruit production period of the tree. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. And if you use the principles taught by Jacob Mittleider in the Mittleider Gardening Course book, and make sure that you're using the all-natural mineral fertilizer that's so inexpensive to make, you will not believe wonderful flavor and the immense harvest from your fruit trees.